Hello everyone! Today we're going to be jumping back into Standard with a self-mill deck focused on getting some insane value out onto the battlefield. Now the deck list is down in the description if you want to take a look at all the cards we've included, but I'm going to talk about some of the key cards that we're using in this deck. So first and foremost, Conspiracy Unraveler. This guy is the center of our deck strategy. He's a 7 mana 6/6 flyer, and we can collect evidence 10 instead of paying the mana cost for spells that we cast when we have him on the battlefield. Now this is going to be absolutely insane because our self-mill strategy focuses on getting high mana value cards into our graveyard that we can then use to cast the same high mana value cards from our hands. Another all-star in this deck is Squirming Emergence. This is our only green splash, but this card here is going to be able to get us almost anything that we want out of our graveyard. So let's talk a little bit about what we're trying to get. So Portal to Phyrexia is one of the high value spells here. It's going to give us recurring value with our creatures, and that's going to be great. One with the Multiverse lets us take a look at the top of our library and additionally gives us a free cast, which can be really great for us as well. Atraxa has her ETB, having lifelink will help us stabilize, and it'll fix up our hand and give us some more cards that we can potentially cast. And then Breach of the Multiverse mills us and our opponent for 10 cards, and gets us a creature. So if we can go ahead and get this cast, we can find an Unraveler potentially, find an Atraxa, and then get some more value from there. Aside from that, the rest of the cards that we have in our deck are ways of protecting ourselves and or kind of establishing more mill into our graveyard. So Otherworldly Gaze is our cheap Surveil 3 with Flashback, a great way to get cards into our graveyard. Founding is amazing in this deck, especially since we can kind of skip ahead to that third chapter and for 5 mana get a Squirming Emergence out of our graveyard. Or if we play it on an earlier turn and we're willing to wait, we can mill 4, find the Squirming Emergence in the graveyard with some extra cards, and then cast it the next turn. And we can even get the value out of that first chapter as well if we have one of our cheaper spells. Speaking of, we have Picklock Prankster, Flying Vigilance blocker, which isn't bad, but it also lets us mill 4 and then get an instant or sorcery back. And then Cruel Somnophage lets us mill and will eventually be a fairly large creature since we are going to be doing a lot of milling, and we'll get some number of creatures in our graveyard and potentially our opponent's graveyard with Breach of the Multiverse. Jace acts as both a win con for us, letting us mill out our opponent if we can recur him with Squirming Emergence for free and things like that, or we can use it to protect ourselves from our opponent's attacking creatures with that plus ability, or mill some extra cards with the -2. We've also included 2 copies of Consuming Tide. Sometimes this deck is a little bit weak to opponents on an aggro game plan who are going wide, things like the Convoke deck that's very popular. So this is just a way to buy us some extra time and return everything to their owner's hands, except for 1 permanent per player. And in our case, as long as we can keep our Conspiracy Unraveler on the battlefield, this is going to be a great play at almost any time of the game. Land base is fairly straightforward. We have a couple of ways to access green. One of the notable helpful lands here is we do have a lot of the Surveil lands included. And these Surveil lands are a great way to get extra spells into our graveyard, extra permanents into our graveyard, and enable our combos. So that's the deck. If you guys have been enjoying my videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on my latest content. And if you do enjoy this video, make sure you give it a like. Let's go ahead and see how this deck does. Alright, so we've got our opponent going first, but a pretty good starting hand. I definitely think we can keep. I like having Squirming Emergence and the colors of lands that we're going to need to go ahead and cast that. Not too much going on in the early game, so we are relying a little heavily on the Hedge Mage here. I'm going to play this out, Surveil. That'll go into the graveyard. I'd like to find something that we could do early, if possible. Alright, let's go Yavimaya Coast. Again, we're playing slow here. I like drawing Consuming Tide, since that's going to give us, a lot of utility with clearing the board. Another Squirming Emergence, alright. Alright, so Founding of the third path is going to help us out a lot here. We'll go ahead, cast this, mill 4. now we have Otherworldly Gaze that we can go ahead and flash back. Alright. Opponent's also playing incredibly slow. And I'm actually perfectly fine with that. That's another permanent in our graveyard. Let's go ahead, flash this back. Let's see, I kind of want the Founding for more mill. And we have enough Squirming Emergences. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and do it like this. Okay, let's play this on its second stage. We have Otherworldly Gaze again, and next turn we can use Squirming Emergence to get back Atraxa. So let's go use the Gaze here. We'll throw you in, throw you in. Draw this. We're actually going to exile Squirming Emergence from our graveyard and cast that one to get Atraxa, keeping the ones in our hand. We really only want to find a land with Atraxa. Alright. Looks like we've got it. Alright, so here we are going first. Now, I don't think we have enough lands to make this work, so I will take the mulligan here. This is going to be better for us. So let's go ahead, keep this. I'm going to bottom the Conspiracy Unraveler. Then we're going to start with the Underground Mortuary, Picklock Prankster. Well, actually, I think we are going to draw it, because we can go ahead and cast off Founding. If we want to, at least. I think there's also a good case for using the Somniphage here. Yeah, let's use the Somniphage. I'll hold up Picklock Prankster, mill a bunch. Looking pretty good. Alright, temporary lockdown. I'm gonna mill myself 4. Alright, so now, at this point, we get Squirming Emergence next turn. So let's go Dreamroot Cascade, and I'm gonna hold up Picklock Prankster. That extra mill is gonna be important for whatever it is we choose to get back with Emergence. If it has to be the Jace, it'll be the Jace, and I'm fine with that. Maybe they have a counterspell? We're gonna go ahead and put Consuming Tide into our hand. Squirming Emergence. Now, if our opponent does have a counterspell, they'll use it here. If they use the counterspell, we'll just play Undercity Sewers. Surveil 1. Tap that for black. I don't know why they would give me more mana, but we'll just get a black land in its place. Now we're gonna cast this. I'm actually gonna get the Conspiracy Unraveler here instead of Atraxa. And then we're gonna use Undercity Sewers to throw the Jace in the graveyard. And we're gonna cast this using the alternate cost. Let's see, what do we got? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. We find Consuming Tide, but I don't think we actually want to use that right now. So let's just play out the Somniphage for free. Or, sorry. I think we'll keep our graveyard exactly where it is. And just pass the turn. Having both of these on the battlefield is going to be nice for us. Okay, Vestavia gets us a free land. Let's go Hedge Maze. Surveil. Breach. I'm actually happy drawing Breach. Breach will get us Atraxa. We have a Maya Coast. And that's 8. And we'll get rid of a Picklock Prankster, that's fine. Let's see, Atraxa for us. Shigeki for our opponent. Atraxa ETB refills our hand. Let's grab Founding. We'll grab another Breach. Hedge Maze. And it looks like we've got it. Alright, so we've got our opponent going first. And turn 2, we can play Founding with the Somnophage. Have Picklock Prankster after it. I kind of like it. Out of all the spells to have in hand, Breach is also a pretty good one. So I think this is pretty good. Yep, we'll go ahead. Keep plans to start with the Hedge Maze. Alright, we're playing up against a Toxic deck, so we do have to be a little fast. That can go into the graveyard. Rock Priest, yep. Another Breach, so let's go Founding on the first chapter, play the Somnophage. Somnophage, there we go. Millus for 4. Swarming Emergence. So, we're gonna want to do a bunch of milling. If we can hit something good with Squirming Emergence, we might have a chance. Conspiracy Unraveler into the Triple Breach would be really nice. So let's mill us for 4 cards. Okay, so there is an Atraxa that we can pull back. And now we have Picklock Prankster and Otherworldly Gaze to try and hit Conspiracy Unraveler. Okay. We have to be careful, because if our opponent has enough spells, they can just end the game. Alright, let's go Picklock Prankster. There's Conspiracy Unraveler. Perfect. We'll auto-pay here. Lose the life. I do want to Surveil as well. Getting more things into our graveyard now is gonna help fuel all of our breaches. That being said, we are gonna mill 30 next turn, so if we cast all of these. So we do have to be a little careful. We'll just fix up our draw, see if we can find something good. Drawing Portal is really good for us. Let's see, one with the Multiverse, also really strong. I think we leave it exactly like this. That way we, Conspiracy Unraveler, one with the Multiverse, Portal, yeah. So let's go Squirming Emergence. We will cast it. We get Conspiracy Unraveler. We use that to cast this for free. Let's see, I think we'll have to get rid of Atraxa and one of the Squirming Emergences, which is fine. We'll have more Atraxas. From here, we cast Portal for free because of one with the Multiverse. Opponent sacks their board. If they have anything to phase out or protect their creatures, they can use that now. Alright, so they just target it with removal to give me an extra poison counter. That's fine by me. And now we have all these breaches for our next turn. Alright, we're gonna take the Rot Priest, I think? Yeah. Then let's go ahead, cast Breach for free off one with a Multiverse. We're gonna take another Rock Priest from our opponent, and let's get our Jace back. Then we'll go Breach for free off Conspiracy Unraveler. We'll exile a Breach and Consuming Tide. We'll get another Rot Priest, because it's fun, and a Conspiracy Unraveler. Or actually, let's get our 10/10 Somniphage. Oh, 8/8, because we pulled something back. Now, with Jace here, our opponent's at 29. I think I'm just gonna go and mill them. We're going for a mill game plan here. 14 cards. 9? No, I think we wait till next turn. Or actually, we'll just cast Jace for free here. We'll exile a Breach and a Jace. That way they'll come in with the 5 counters. Don't even worry about the mana. And then mill out our opponent, and this should be the game.
Flesh will always retreat if I will shatter your
Perfect.
mind.
We can swing for 6. Doesn't particularly matter. And then end our turn. Alright, so here we are on the play. This is a decent opening hand, but we don't really have much going on in the early game except for Founding here, so I am going to take the mulligan, hope to find something a little bit better. I like having Squirming Emergence in our hand, so we'll go ahead keep in bottom the Atraxa. Let's hope that Hedge Maze lets us hit some extra things to put in our graveyard. I'm going to keep this forest just because I want 4 lands for the Jace. I'm going to go Hedge Maze again. That we can get rid of. We don't want to flood out in terms of lands. I think we go Founding next turn. Start on the mill mode. Alright, so we have Squirming Emergence, and we have one with the Multiverse in our graveyard.
Aren't even there.
Alright, I have to exile this. I think I want to keep one with the Multiverse. So we'll decline here. But we will play Jace for his full cost. And then mill ourselves.
Phyrexian's plans are already in. We can improve.
Draw a card. Alright. Pretty good.
Easy. So.
Now, what do we have
Next
here?
turn, I think we'll get rid of Jace and then Squirming Emergence for one with the Multiverse. However, our opponent could be holding up a counterspell here. So I think instead I'm going to go for the Picklock Prankster, mill a little bit more. We're going to grab Breach back. And we'll just play out our Prankster. Waiting a turn isn't really going to hurt here, especially if we're afraid of counterspells.
Now this is a juicy secret.
Perfect. That has Flash, so I'm not even sure why they would have went ahead and cast that, but let's go one with the Multiverse. This gives us a free Conspiracy Unraveler. Free Conspiracy Unraveler gives us a free Breach. Let's get rid of... We want Atraxa, so I think we'll just get rid of the Breach in our graveyard. And we'll get rid of Consuming Tide to cast that. We'll get Atraxa back from our graveyard, and we'll get Shielded from our opponent. Alright, anything we want here? I'll take a Breach. Everything else can stay. Because we do have to be careful here. Cast Breach again. We're going to exile Breach. And Squirming Emergence for 10. Do it one more time. Alright, I think we get a Jace from our graveyard. And we'll get that from our opponent.
Phyrexia showed me the truth. Flesh will always
And we'll just put the lands back. Gain a bunch of life. Opponent has 26 cards. Let's minus this Jace. Mill our opponent for a bunch.
retreat.
I think we're close enough to that for a win con. We're gonna play out our Jace, exile these two. That should be all of our opponent's cards. And we've got it.
Focus on the facts.
Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed. So, just a little bit of advice for this deck. I think the big takeaways are make sure that you have a hand that can do something in the early game. This deck does play a little bit slow, which makes it weak to aggro. But if you do have those strong early game plays, you know, a turn 1 play, a turn 2 play, you can maybe even get off that turn 3 Squirming Emergence with enough things in your graveyard to start doing some wacky things. Now, another piece of advice that I would have is it's very easy to focus on value with this deck and not quite winning the game. So, you know, you have your Conspiracy Unraveler, you start casting free spells, you breach into Atraxa, you do cool things, you have a lot of big creatures. But big creatures don't win you the game the turn they come into the battlefield. What does win you the game is using Jace to mill out your opponent. So sometimes, if your graveyard is set up appropriately and you have enough cards, focus on using Jace to mill out your opponent, especially if you've cast 1 or 2 breaches already. Keep in mind that breach does mill each player for 10 cards, and since we're on a self-mill plan, our library is also a limited resource for us. So if we can mill out our opponent, that would be great. We need to be very careful with the breaches, because again, if we cast all 4 of these, that's almost going to be our whole library in the graveyard, like right there. So definitely be a little cautious about that. But aside from that, the deck is very fun. You can power out some big wins, and if you can't, I mean, that's okay. You have some decent protection for yourself as well. So if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure you give it a like, and if you have any ideas for another deck that you'd like to see me play, why don't you let me know in a comment down below. I'll see you all next time.